So if you look behind me, you'll see on the floor there is a piece of the ceiling. Apparently I take Saturdays off, you don't know, and I walk in here this morning on Sunday, and that was just on the floor. What happened, there was a big rainstorm, and I guess it leaked, and it came through. And thankfully no electronics were broken or anything like that, so it's just a little leak. We're gonna get that fixed. But it inspired me to make this video, because I wanted to tell you why in life, many things that are good are actually bad, and many things that are bad are actually good. Because really there is no good or bad. And this is one of the most profitable things I've ever done, not only in my business, but in my life. So if you can't spend 5 minutes watching this video, then quite frankly, I don't know what to tell you. So how many people do you know right now that you're friends with, that you're family members of yours, whatever? And every time you talk to them, they have some horrible news to tell you. And it's not really ever anything that bad, but it's like, oh, I hate my job, and I hate my life, and this sucks, and this sucks. And it's never anything positive, it's always something bad. Even if it is something positive, it always ends with a twist that makes it bad. You probably know someone like this. And have you ever met someone that's like that, that is extremely successful? That's an extremely successful person that's self-made, right? Probably not. And the reason is because if you're busy thinking about how negative everything is in your life, how are you ever going to do something positive and be productive? And the answer is you're not. And so I want to make this clear. This is not some video about positive thinking BS. Okay, I'm not going to sit here on camera and try to tell you to think positively about everything in your life, because quite frankly, I think you already know that. And even if you don't, I'm not your mom. I'm not going to tell you how to think about things. And you gotta think about things positively, okay? That's not my job. What I am here to tell you to do is, instead of making something directly negative or directly positive, let's look at it in a different light. I first learned this when I was 15 years old. And I was playing basketball one day, and I broke my ankle. I'm not gonna show you guys a picture of it because it's really, really, really gross. And most people want to throw up after they see it. So I'm not gonna burden you with that. But just put it this way, it was a very bad injury. And I broke my ankle, and suddenly everything I loved and I cared about, which basically at that time was basketball, was gone. It was no longer there. And so I didn't know how to think. I didn't really know what to do. And I took it immediately as a very negative thing, as I'm sure most people would. I just can't walk now. And I can't play my favorite sport. So this sucks, right? And it did suck. But looking back, what happened is this was the day that I broke my ankle. And this is the timeline. This is the positive events, and this is the negative events. And let me write that better. This is the negative right there. Boom. Still pretty bad. Okay. And very quickly, it was a very negative event. I broke my ankle. I went to the hospital, had to get surgery. Started failing classes because I wasn't in school. It's just all these bad things started happening. But then there was this point right here where it hit peak negativity, okay, for this event. And this was about 6 months after I actually broke my ankle. I'm not gonna burden you guys with the whole story, but basically I was talking to a counselor at my high school, and they told me that I was gonna be a complete failure in my life because I broke my ankle, was basically what they said, okay? And I'm very competitive, and so I was like, you know what? No, F that, I'm not gonna do that. So at that point, I turned it around. I said, you know what? This is not a negative thing. I said, this is a big advantage. I said, because this just made me mentally tough. And so very quickly, I went from thinking it was super negative to all of a sudden now opening up new possibilities. And so now it's like, oh, I have this motivation because this person doesn't believe in me. Let me go prove them wrong, right? I'd like to add it to that this change literally happened within 5 minutes, right? So for the previous 6 months of this injury, I had been saying, boo-hoo, my life sucks, and why me, and all these things. And then within 5 minutes, all of that changes, and now I'm saying this is the greatest thing to ever happen to me because of this, this, and this. And so I took that motivation from this bad event, and I said, you know what? Let me go and join a real estate investing club at this point at 16 years old and start learning about real estate. And let me go and start a business. And oh, that business failed? Oh, that was negative too, right? Well, okay, hey, that just means I'm gonna get it right on the second one, because every great story has failures in it. And so I started looking at this negative event as just that, just an event. I didn't let it define the rest of my life. And that is the problem with so many people, is they go through a divorce, they fail a class, I don't know what, they get kicked off something, I don't know, okay? Something bad, their business goes bankrupt, I have no idea, okay? But something bad happens. And then the rest of their life, they say, wow, I am a failed whatever. And in reality, that's not true. It's just what you think of it. In reality, it was just some event that happened at some point in time. And whether it's positive or negative is literally completely up to you. And so my point is here is, how I did this was very, 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 very simple. And it's actually really easily repeatable. And I've done it several times. In fact, if we take that same idea here and we look at this graph, we got positive and negative, right? Again, I can't draw, I apologize. And we look at, like, for instance, my younger brother, Mason. If you don't know, my younger brother is severely autistic. He can't speak. And so many people, they would take that as super negative, right? It's like, you didn't get to do all these things. Your brother obviously is mentally very disabled. Just all of these negative things. And all those things are true. And you could sit here and say, like, wow, I should really feel sorry for myself. But what I did, I said, you know what? I said, now my motivation for being a business mogul is like, I want to have enough money to take care of my brother and be able to get him any treatment he wants in the world. That's like the greatest motivation in the world. That motivation never runs out. I want to have the ability to donate hundreds of millions of dollars to causes that help people with autism, right? Like, that's a massive advantage. Right? Because it's not about me, it's about someone else. And so I could sit here and I could look at the negative. I could say, hey, it really sucks. My brother's autistic, and I'm never going to be able to I'm never going to be able to talk to him or do anything like a regular sibling relationship. But you know what? At the same time, it's a massive advantage. In fact, I think it's probably one of the biggest advantages I have, because I'm absolutely ruthless now when it comes to business, because I'm not playing for myself. I'm playing for someone else. And when you're not playing for yourself, you can't lose. Like, I've already lost. I lost up front, right? So I can lose 50 times in a row. That doesn't mean anything to me. I'll just keep playing, right? And so again, this is a massive advantage. And so how I did this was really, really, really simple, actually. And all it is because I don't look at events by themselves. And I don't ever look at events in terms of short-term consequences. I always look at long-term consequences. Okay, and I'll explain what I mean by this in a second. But really the secret to doing this is to look at your life simply as a documentary or as a story, not as a one-time event. And so when you're looking at it as a documentary or story, well, in a documentary or story, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and the end. And if you're watching this, you haven't gotten to the end yet because you're still alive, right? So the end is over here, okay? And we're living somewhere on this present line, right? And the events in the past are behind the present, right? And so if you just zoom in and read one page of a book, or if you watch one scene of a documentary, does that give you the whole picture of the documentary? No, it gives you one scene, right? If you read one page of a book, does that give you the whole book? No, it gives you a page out of a 300-page book. And so at any point in the book, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And so I know that my goals are in the future, obviously, right? You don't have goals that you've already accomplished. It doesn't make any sense. And so my goal, if you don't know, is to be a massively impactful person. I want to have a massive company that changes the world. I want to have a $10, $100 billion company that changes literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of people's lives. And that's my goal. And that's down the line. That's 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? And so if that's my goal, then what does that even have to do with anything back here, right? Like, it has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with me breaking my ankle or my brother in autism or any other example that we could use. It has nothing. It's completely different. And let me turn my light back on because I forgot to turn it on. But it has nothing to do with that. But the problem is people are too busy looking at these negative events to realize that they're not even correlated. They're really not. They're just two different points in the book. And really what opened this up for me is I read several biographies of very, very, very successful people. One of those is John D. Rockefeller. Now, Rockefeller is a very controversial person. Some people think he was like the biggest criminal of all time, or like the biggest corporate criminal of all time. Some people think that he is an amazing business person, an entrepreneur, and was a great person. I don't know where you fall, but I'm not trying to tell you what to think. But I do know, and no one can argue this, he was very, very, very successful. In today's money, he would have been worth $600 billion, okay, with a B. He's richer in today's money than the 3 richest people alive right now, combined, okay? Anyways, he's very, very successful. He lived back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So long story short, If you read his biography called Titan, it talks about his early life, and he grew up in a very horrible household. And his dad was basically a walking con man. And instead of saying like, wow, like my life sucks, I shouldn't do this, he took that and he was like, you know what, I'm going to be super, super anal about my business, and I'm going to make sure everything's done correctly and legally because my dad didn't do it. And so he just took the positive meaning out of the event instead of the negative meaning. And that's because there is no real positive meaning and there's no real negative meaning. There's simply positive and negative feedback. And the reason why you're like, doesn't that mean the same thing? It does. But when you say, hey, there's a positive meaning for something, people get emotions tied to it. You know, hey, I made $1 million. That gets you emotional. You get excited about it. That's a positive meaning. In reality, it's just positive feedback. It just means you're doing something right. But it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It just means that you're doing something correct. And hey, you know what? You got thrown in jail. Okay? Again, you did do something bad probably. And I'm not here to say going to jail is a good or bad thing. Of course. Okay, of course, it's not a good thing. Okay? But it's simply negative feedback. All it is saying is that if you continue doing this, you will end up back here. That's all it's saying. And so my point in saying all of this is for you to do three things. Number one is look at your life as a documentary or a movie, okay, or a book, okay, a story, and pretend like every single day there's thousands of people watching this documentary. And whatever decisions you make that day, they're either going to inspire these people or going to be like, that guy's not really that impressive. He's kind of, or that guy or gal is just, they're okay. They're okay. Because when you start looking at it like this, it doesn't matter what happens to you. You know, a documentary, a book, a movie, none of these things are interesting if everything's just good, if everything's just positive. Okay, there needs to be conflict. And it's how the main character reacts to that conflict that makes it interesting. And so when these people are watching your documentary or your movie, are they going to say, wow, like this guy, he figured everything out even though all these bad things happened to him? Or are they going to say, wow, this guy just made a lot of excuses? Because it's going to be one or the other. You can't have both. The second thing that you need to do is you need to look at things in long-term consequences, not short-term. And so what I mean by this is that everyone, when they're making decisions, there is an event horizon, and it's also known as like second-order consequences, okay? So we'll go through a basic decision. So first-order consequence, let's say the decision is you want to buy a TV. Well, you buy the TV, okay? And the first-order consequence, which is the thing that immediately happens when you buy the TV, is you get a TV. And let's say you bought it for Black Friday, right? Black Friday was a few days ago. Bought it for Black Friday. You got a great deal. You saved some money. Okay, that's awesome. Well, what's the second-order consequence? Well, the second-order consequence is, you actually had to, even though you got a deal, you still had to spend money. So you're still losing money, right? And the third-order consequence is because you got a TV and because you had to spend money, well, now you're committed to using this thing, right? And so you're going to spend time watching the TV. And so you're going to spend time, or in other words, honestly, just waste time in front of a TV. And the fourth consequence is because you're going to be spending time in front of it, you're probably going to have to pay for the TV service. So now you got to pay for the TV service, okay? And because you're paying for the TV service, you're going to get phone calls from this company to upgrade. So you're going to have to talk to them on the phone about upgrading your TV service to add more channels, which is going to take more of your time. And if you buy, it's going to take more of your money. And then because you bought this TV and you spent money on it and you're spending time on it and you upgraded you're paying for your TV service and you upgrade your TV service, now you're going to host a Super Bowl party that's going to cost you another couple $100 down the line because you bought a TV and all these things happen. And you see it goes on and on and on. And so if we look at this, like, what are the positive consequences? Well, yeah, okay, you got a TV, that's pretty positive, I guess. You got a TV, but you spent money, that's negative. You're spending time, that's negative. You got to pay for your TV service, that's negative. You're going to get called about upgrading your service all the time, that's pretty negative. You're going to host a Super Bowl party, I can't talk, which I guess could be positive, but realistically, it's like you could probably just go to someone else's Super Bowl party. It really doesn't matter that much. And it goes on and on and on and on. And so we see here, like, if you just look at the first event, you're like, oh, I'm getting a TV. Like, that sounds like a win. But in reality, it's not. Because out of the 6 things on here, 4 of them are definitely negative. And one of them could kind of go either way, negative or positive. And then the first one is definitely positive. Okay? And this works both ways, too. Let's say instead of buying a TV, we look at something more dramatic. Okay? We look at, like, for instance, my brother having autism, okay? So we look at autism, okay? And we see, well, first thing is, like, obviously he's disabled, okay? And because he's disabled, that's a pretty negative thing, for sure, right? You're not gonna argue that. And because he's disabled, weren't able to do normal family activities. So I didn't grow up with like a normal family. We never did family dinners or anything like that. Like, so we have a lot of weird things that we've had to do because of our family situation because of this. And because of this, of our weird family situations as a kid, I actually got in fights with other kids when they would pick on my brother, right? And because I got in fights, I learned how to fight, but more important than that is I built a lot of mental toughness at a young age. And because I built mental toughness, it led me to realize that this situation I'm in, because I got in these fights especially, I realized that this is a bad situation and that I'm not happy with the situation, not happy. And I want to fix it, but obviously you can't fix that, right? So what's the next best thing to do? Well, the next best thing to do, because I can't fix it and because I'm not happy about the situation, is, well, I want to help prevent this from happening to other people, right? So I want to be able to donate money and time to these causes, right? And because of that, I need to have money and time. And because I need to have money and time, we'll continue over here, number 7. I need to have money and time. I need to have money and time. And because I need to have money and time, I have to learn how to get money and time. So I have to learn at a very young age. And because I have to learn at a very young age, so I'm super driven because, quite frankly, my parents are in good health, knock on wood, but, you never know when they're going to pass away, and almost I have to take care of this, very severely disabled person. And you need to have money and time for that, so that makes me even more driven. I'm not going to write that again. I think you guys get the point. And because I'm driven, I started, doing things that successful people do at a very young age that most people don't start picking up until they're 30 or 40. I started doing it like 13, right? And because I started doing things at a young age, I've been able to have success at a young age, right? Which has allowed me, and I think you guys get the point, which has allowed me to donate to these causes that I care about and also start saving money for that, and think bigger than other people because I've been able to see things bigger than other people at a young age, so I can think bigger. And so it goes on and on and on. But the point is like, this is the 12th consequences, my brother being disabled. Like, if we look at this is negative, disabled, right? We didn't get a normal family situation, that's disabled. I got in fights, that's negative. Okay, negative, negative, negative. First 3 are negative, right? Okay, I built my mental toughness, that's positive, right? But it's a bad situation, I'm not happy, that's negative. So out of the first 5 consequences of him having autism, like 4 of them are negative, okay? So if you just stopped it there, you're like, this is a horrible situation. And it's bad, right? But then it's like, well, it inspired me to want to donate money to the cause. That's very positive. That's a very positive thing, right? Well, hey, and because I'm inspired to donate money and time to this, I have to have money and freedom. And so that's a very positive thing too. And because I have to have money and freedom, I have to learn how to get money and freedom. And so that's very positive. And because I had to learn how to money and get it, I had to become driven. And that's extremely positive. And because I was extremely driven, and I wanted to learn how to get money or how to make money and get freedom, and because I wanted to donate to these causes, because I wasn't happy with the situation, I started doing that at very young, which is also very, very positive. And because I started doing it very young, I've been able to have success very young, which is also very, very positive. And because I've had success very, very young, I've been able to see things a lot, like I've been able to see how the world works at a lot bigger, like a lot wider than most people my age have. And I've been able to see like what is really, truly possible. And because of that, I've been able to think much, much, much bigger, which is very, very positive as well. So now we look at these 12 consequences here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that are positive, and we have 4 that are negative. So now all of a sudden, the graph, which was clearly like this, is now slowly becoming exponentially positive. And so this is really kind of the secret behind how you look at things. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'll see you on the next one.